Hi, I'm Klemp, a West Michigan astrologer. First of all, before we talk about the summer solstice and talk about the solar eclipse, I want to talk a little bit about how I always start out my videos, that I'm from West Michigan. And the reason I do isn't because all of my clients are in West Michigan, but I really love West Michigan. I love watching the sunset over the lake, the big lake. I love all the little lakes in between. I love our four seasons. So it really feels like where I come from. However, many of my clients are from different states. I have traveled abroad, but I am a Michigan girl. I'm a Michigan woman, and I love living in West Michigan. So let's talk a little bit about the solar eclipse coming up the 23rd of June. There's 4 reasons that it's particularly powerful. And what I'm going to do in talking about the 4 reasons is how it is reflective of what's going on in the news today with the racial discord, and they're talking about revamping the whole police department. This whole thing is fits with the energy that is happening in the cosmos. That it is a time of total reform, that we must change, and the people will not take what we have accepted in the past. I talked a little bit about this when I talked about the lunar eclipse a couple weeks ago, but the difference between the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse is, first of all, the lunar eclipse is based on emotion and feeling, and certainly we've seen a lot of anger happening. The solar eclipse is emphasis is more on the intellect and starting something new. And we're seeing glimpses of that already. We're focusing on what exactly are we going to do with the police department in the United States? How is the whole system going to be revamped? Well, this whole idea of a whole systems being revamped is what Pluto is about. And Pluto, being in Capricorn, which it's been now for a few years, is about revamping the main structures around the world. So it's not just a coincidence that this is happening now. Okay, so I'm going to talk about 4 powerful things that are happening during this solar eclipse. First of all, it's at 0 degrees Cancer. Anytime you see 0 degrees of a cardinal sign, it's a powerful beginning. It's a powerful beginning, and I'm going to say anybody who is born between the end of the 21st of June to the first week in July are going to feel this on a very personal level, because they're going to feel a real need to change and a real need for reform within themselves. People that are born between March 21st and the first week in April, that's going to square it because that's Aries. So it's the beginning of Aries. So that's going to, people are also going to feel a real need for a reform, and squaring that Aries energy. It may be emotional. They may be more emotional than usual, depending on the rest of their chart. Also, people born between September 21 and the first week in October, which is Libra, that will be squaring Libra. So they'll also feel a lot of inner tension and feeling like they have to start something new. December 20th to the first week in January, which are Capricorn people. Early, the first decant of Capricorn will also feel it especially. But all of us will feel it on some level, because it's what's happening around the world, that we're recognizing that we need some major reform, some major renovation in how we do our establishments. The second thing that is especially auspicious about the solar eclipse is that, again, the sun and the moon, which are together, they're both in Cancer. That's why when you look up in the sky, you don't see a moon, it's the new moon. But they square Mars and Neptune in Pisces. Well, usually Cancer and Pisces trine each other, but because one is 0 degrees and the other is late degrees, it's a square. So what does this mean? Well, I talked about this a little bit with the lunar eclipse, because we also had it with the lunar eclipse. it also squared, and that's tension, it's anger. But just because Mars is at a T-square, but because Mars is in Pisces, Mars in Pisces is focused towards peace. And so the uprising that we've seen in the streets is much different than what we saw back in the 60s, because we also see people moving forward and cleaning up the streets, helping businesses get back on their feet. This is what Mars in Pisces is about. Mars in Pisces is very compassionate, and Pisces is associated with world peace. So even though we see a lot of public unrest and a lot of anger, we also see people stepping forward and helping out and wanting to have a vision. The Mars is conjunct Neptune. Well, a positive Neptune is about having a new vision. What do we want? What does this look like? What do we really want the world to look like? What do we want the police department to look like? How can we make this work? So this is the difference again between the huge unrest we had in the late 60s and various other times in our history. And what's happening now is that there's a real emphasis on how are we going to have a new future. So another difference that I see is it's very close to the summer equinox. So because the solar eclipse is close to the summer equinox, again, it just gives it a powerful punch. The other thing is, as I've talked about Pluto before, Pluto is about death and new birth. And at various times during the year, Jupiter conjuncts that Pluto. Well, anything Jupiter touches expands it, because Jupiter is about expansion. So it's just this incredible energy is going on right now about we must change. We must change our systems, and we must move forward to a more peaceful life. So the fact that it's close to the summer equinox just gives it more power. The fourth thing that I want to mention that is powerful during this solar eclipse is that there are several retrograde planets. Mercury is retrograde, Venus is retrograde, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto are all retrograde during this eclipse. Well, retrograde energy, and what I mean by that is the planets appear to be moving backwards. And when we have a lot of retrograde planets, whether it is in someone's birth chart or whether it's something that's transiting, there's a lot of reflection. And we see that in the news, don't we? We see a lot of reflection of, we're not going to do this anymore. This has got to change. So this is going to be the mode as we move forward into the summer, into the fall. For the next 6 months, there'll be a lot of reflection of what we don't want in this country and how we want to move forward. As I mentioned in my talk about the lunar eclipse, Mars is moving into Aries. It's moving out of Pisces into Aries. And Aries pushes forward. And it's a fire sign, so it pushes forward to implement new changes. So it's an exciting time that we're experiencing right now. It's a time of true renovation, a real renaissance towards a new life. Thank you for listening. This is Klemp from West Michigan.